recognize that and offer you a few thoughts after Dr. Rader gives us some good advice. And we're going to record Dr. Rader's comments and come back and play them later. We're going to revisit them, have some exercises based upon them. And for those of you, even if you see yourself in scenarios involving interviewing for a job, applying for major awards, then what Dr. Rader is going to say will be particularly relevant for you. And we'll come back and revisit this and do some exercises. Then we're going to offer you a few thoughts about kind of where we are in life, Bonner, and school, and then we're going to send you on your way. So, Dr. Rader, it's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Irving. So I hope everybody can hear me just fine. So I just want to say, kind of in the time that I have, and I think I have about 10 to 15 minutes, I just want to talk a little bit about a few points that you all should be considering kind of going forward. And it's not even so much just a fellowships-driven kind of conversation that I want to have. It's more one of thinking about your own kinds of trajectories. And so there's some people on this call that I know, that I've worked with before. I can see Shaylee out there, and I have in class. I've talked to Ariel before. And Sarah Grace, I see you now at the bottom of the screen. So I've worked with a bunch of you before, and I really enjoy working with Bonners. And we just had a selection committee that we did where there were a lot of Bonners that applied, a lot of really good students. And a lot of the major awards that I apply for also really have Bonners applying. And it's great to work with you all because you're doing really interesting things. I think that you're good people as well, who are really sort of tuned into the world around them. And that's great because we need a lot more people like that who can actually just sort of shut off their social media for 20 minutes and actually think for themselves and get out there and be involved, even though it might be a little harder to do this year. The thing that I kind of want to talk about a little bit more and focus on for this particular call is getting you to think about how to reflect during the course of your academic career. And for some of you, you're more towards the end of it. And I'm sure that people like Shaylee or Sarah Grace who are writing applications right now can certainly speak to the fact that this is not an easy process, especially when you get towards the end of your academic career and you're thinking about, why did I do all of these things? And you have somebody like me who's asking really annoying questions like, why do you do Bonner? Why do you enjoy helping people? Why do you do service? Within service, why do you do food recovery? Why do you do WISE, right? Why did you want to help people through the form of education, right? And some students, like some of the students on this call, have done a pretty good job of answering those questions. But there's a lot of students, both within and outside of Bonner, who, when I pose these questions to them, I get a lot of blank responses, or I get a lot of, well, I don't know. And it's not to say that you have to know the answer to this every time that I ask you this question, because it's not like I'm asking you a really easy question. You know, why do you do Bonner? Why do you enjoy teaching and tutoring others in English? Why do you work with specific populations? But these are questions that you want to ask yourself as you're doing the Bonner program, as you're moving through your academic career and you're picking courses and you're selecting majors and you're choosing other co-curricular programs. Because there's going to come a time when you actually have to articulate to another person in a way that is both concise and coherent and also memorable why you've done these things. It's a way for people to get to know you. And in many cases, they're only going to be able to get to know you first on a sheet of paper and then maybe in an interview. And you're going to have to talk about this. And so thinking about your profile and thinking about why you're doing some of the things that you're doing as you're doing them is going to be really important for you. It'll pay dividends later on in your academic career. And things to consider might be, why do I enjoy doing this? What do I like about this, right? Or how do I feel when I do this? What kinds of emotions do I experience when I do these types of things when I'm working in a program like Bonner, for example? What are challenges that I've faced? How did I overcome those? How do I feel like I've grown through this process? I know previously in Bonner, you've had to write letters to yourself, right? To your freshman self and things of that nature. You could be doing this more often, thinking more about, you know, how have I grown through this process from working with different people, from doing different programs. That's the kind of thing that a reader wants to know about later on, an interviewer wants to know about later on. And the people who are able to give the best answers, and I don't mean like, tell the best stories or there is only one right or wrong answer, but the people who are able to give compelling reasons for why they do some of these things, those are the folks that people feel like they get to know the best in applications, the people that get to know the best for job interviews, for graduate school interviews, things of that nature. And so if you're thinking more about that now and you're taking the time to reflect on it, I guarantee it'll pay off later on. I think it'll also help you think more about what your next steps are. So for many of you, right, you're involved in one co-curricular program, and then you might think about getting involved in another, or you might think about doing research or something, an internship, for example. And the question might be, well, where do I gravitate towards next, right? Well, thinking more about some of the types of experiences you've had in the past can help inform those decisions. And rather than just kind of blindly sort of shooting through the universe, picking different things and trying stuff out, you're not going to be able to do that after freshman year as much as you would have during freshman year or earlier in your academic career. You have to start making decisions that are going to pay off and be more instrumental long term. And so if you can think about some of this stuff as you're making decisions for what you want to do next, think about what you've already done. Think about how that has influenced or motivated you to maybe take a next step. And a good and easy way to maybe kind of break this down is if you're thinking about some of the stuff that you've already done, identify a few important experiences that you've had at UH, maybe off campus, right? Could even be a class that you've taken, for example. Why was it so important? Try to describe that to you. What did you get out of it, right? Think about different values that you have. And that's not an easy thing to sort of consider. A lot of times we have difficulty explaining that, but what matters to you and intrinsically, what's important to you as a person? Think of 3 or 4, types of values that might be important, characteristics. Try to connect some of these. Some of the experiences that you've had that have been really important that you identified, what do they have in common? What do they share? Where are their parallels potentially in what you've done? And even in some of your values, can you link those to those experiences that you've had? The more that you're able to think about this and that you're able to do this, the more you'll be able to tell a story about yourself. And you'll be able to speak with greater confidence about yourself as well. And I think that's a trait that a lot of our students don't have, mostly because they don't have the time to think about this, right? And actually, I was talking with a student last week about kind of the situation that we're in, and I kind of thought, oh, everyone's complaining about how we're all doing remote learning and virtual learning and things of that nature. And she actually said to me, it's kind of nice in some ways because I can just sit down and focus on one thing at a time, and I don't feel completely overwhelmed like I might feel if I was at campus where I have a million different things going on. So maybe this is an opportunity right now for this semester or potentially for this academic year, if it gets that far, to really answer some of these questions, to think more about that and reflect upon it while you have the time. Because if you do think about it, it'll pay off a lot later on. The other thing that I kind of want to mention about this, and I'm happy to come back to it, is another point that I sort of want to get into that's on the sort of cusp of my thoughts lately as I'm helping students apply for major awards, especially Fulbright. It doesn't affect anybody in this particular call because they have some great recommenders, one of which is also in this call, is that you want to get out and meet faculty and staff, and you want to talk to them, and you want to network with them, and you want to form relationships with them. And these are people who can also help you reflect because they've seen a lot of people go through 4 years of college. They know what it looks like to watch somebody go from being a freshman to a senior, and have seen people after they graduate go on to do other things as well. And they can help you think about this. But they're also the kinds of people who are going to be able to write letters of recommendation for you. And there's nothing sadder when, for me, I have to talk to students who were having a conversation about who could write a letter of recommendation for you. And they say something like, well, I don't really know, actually. I could maybe do this person who I babysat for back when I was a freshman. That's not good enough, right? You need to be able to talk to people and be able to communicate with folks like Dr. Irving, like myself, who are really going to be able to write a good letter for you and talk about you in a specific way. But that means you have to get to know us, which is not easy. I get that it's intimidating, but you have to put yourself out there. And it's even more critical that you do it now because we're all sitting behind these monitors. So it's not as if you can just walk into my office and I can say, hello, Christina or Shane or whatever, right? Tell me more about yourself, right? You really have to find a way to put yourself out there. And I'm already fearing this right now that in 2 years, there's going to be a cohort of Fulbright applicants who don't really know anybody because for a year, maybe even longer, hopefully not, they've been sitting behind a monitor and just haven't gotten to meet anybody. So this is where you need to turn this into an opportunity and try to do your best to visit virtual office hours, to schedule meetings, to participate in classes, and to really reach out to folks. Ariel Durham, we talked last week about some of her future plans, and she reached out to me. That's great. That's what other people should be doing as well, and talking to their faculty and talking to staff members. Well, that's just a couple of short points that they're kind of related to each other, and they're both really important at this particular junction as we make it through the pandemic, because you're going to want to think about how you can be better at both of those things, both reflecting and networking with people who can help you reflect. I'm going to take a break from talking right there. Do other people have questions, or can I clarify things, or I can even give you examples of some of this stuff?
I just wanted to add a comment.
Sure.
I really like that you talked about reflecting because especially during this time, I feel like I have tried to do more of that myself, and it kind of gives me like a sense of purpose. So it's like, why are you doing all the things that you're doing? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's an esoteric exercise in some ways. It's like having an out-of-body experience, right? Like why do I do this, right? But it's really critical. And I'll say that when it's so impressive to reviewers, to interviewers, when they can see that you've really thought about this, and we can easily distinguish who's thought about it and who hasn't. We can easily figure out who's speaking in a voice that is their own, that they own really, and speaking with authority, right? And so that'll make a huge difference later on for you. I mean, it's night and day. Other thoughts? And we've had some great people from Bonner who have come through and been able to do that. I'm always really impressed with the character of Bonners, and I really encourage you again to make intentional decisions about some of the things that you get involved in, and think a lot about your service and the value of your service and the meaning of your service, not just to you, but to the communities that you work with as well. That's all really important. Okay.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rader, for meeting with us today and sharing that advice. Doug, anything before we lose?
Yeah, Ben, could you give us just like a short list of a couple of exercises that we could undertake to begin the process of engagement as you've suggested? And what are a few things we could do? Things we could, I don't know, write, questions we could ask, kinds of conversations to have, ways to think about things we're doing. What are some practical things we could do to begin to engage with what you told us?
Yeah, so I posed some questions before that I think that you could certainly begin to answer, where you're kind of identifying some different experiences and also identifying some values and trying to write out and connect some of those. Another one that I would maybe think about to get to some of that as well is ask yourself, I mean, this is a service learning program, and you are described as Bonner leaders, right? So ask yourself, what's a particular experience that you've had where you've been able to demonstrate leadership? And what did that look like? What did you do specifically? And maybe what was an outcome of that? Or what was a particular public service activity that you did that you found extremely gratifying or extremely impactful for you? Who's somebody who has been an influence for you in your life? There's a lot that can come in a lot of different shapes and forms. It could be somebody's mother. It could be a faculty member that somebody had, right? Why is that the case? And how was it that they influenced you, right? So also identifying some figures that you might have associated with or been really inspired by would be a really good place to start too.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Rader.
No, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Okay.
Who are some of the students on the call that you're working with for major awards? Can we say that so that we kind of know who we might talk to about this sort of thing, or how students might talk with other students who are on this call about the trajectory here?
So I definitely think that kind of going off of some of what I just said, Shaylee's on this call. I'm looking at her right now. She's sitting in a different angle. This is a different computer angle in her room. I've seen a lot of different angles this past summer, but she's been really great. I've really enjoyed working with her. Sarah Grace has been a really pleasure to work with as well, also applying for Fulbright. Let me go through the rest of this here. Just looking at names. Maham. Hey, Maham. She's also applying and has put in a lot of work on her application and has an interview coming up on Thursday. Sarah Grace is coming up soon as well. And Trinity would be another good person to talk to be perfectly honest with you. She put together, looks like I'm sunburned now the way that the light is hitting my face. So she put together a really great Truman application a couple of years ago. And to go to that point of talking about somebody or someone who has influenced her or something that served as a motivating factor to inspire her interest in early childhood literacy. I still mention the fact that when she applied for Truman, when I got feedback on her application from the Truman representative specifically said, the way that she answered a question about that was lovely. It was fantastic. It was wonderful. And that was because she put a lot of effort into reflecting on it and thinking about what motivated her to pursue doing service on this particular issue. So there have been a number of honors who've come before you all that have done a great job doing things like that and who you could talk to about this.
Rashika and Shalini are also they're not on this call, but they're also in that contingent of honors that you're working with for major awards too. So y'all should look them up and chat with them. Thank you very much, Dr. Rader. Woo!
Okay, have a great meeting. All right.
So again, I want you to raise your hand if you feel at all overwhelmed or a little overstressed. A little stressed, a little overwhelmed. Yeah, right. Okay. It's a lot of us. It's a lot of us. And I want you to know that one of the keynote features of leadership that we should all aspire to is to be a good listener. And at any point in leadership, regardless of whether you're leading a business, a program, you'll be a leader in a family or relationship, you've got to be a good listener and appreciate the things that people are saying to you and then be ready to do something about it. So I hear you. And these are challenging times for all of us in many ways. We hadn't expected to have the kinds of engagement we're having, to face the kind of challenges we're facing. And we want to be responsive to how you feel and how you're doing and the stress that you're feeling here in Bonner. So we have worked hard over the summer to try to balance or calibrate expectations in a way that balances kind of opportunity with the challenge and burdens. And we're continuing to do that in this new environment. So we've heard you, and here are the things that we're going to do in response to that. The first thing is I want to make sure that you understand that what we're asking of you here so that you can get the most out of it is that your service work should be an enhancement to your experience here at the university, not a burden. Your schoolwork, your academic work must come first, and it must be the centerpiece of your experience here. This should be something that you're adding on that is an enhancement. And so what I'm asking of you to do is to pick a level of service, a level of sustained engagement this semester that works best for you. Now that you're beginning to get a feel for how this semester is unfolding, how you might tire of screen time, how you might, tire of kind of the Zoom time, how the lack of socialization might be taking a toll on you. All those things. I want you to think about that. Know yourself, and then pick a level of service that is appropriate for you in light of the challenges you have. The only thing I ask of you, calibrate it for you, but then for God's sake, do the best you can to sustain it throughout the semester, because the communities that we deal with will be depending upon that. But you come first, and I want you to pick that works best for you. This should be an enhancement, not a burden. Okay, also, we are going to roll back the assessment work, and we're essentially going to put a pause on it at the moment. So these types of exercises that we were going to ask of you to do in the wake of rallies, this kind of intentional talk about these elements of learning objectives, we're just going to put a pause on that. We're going to scale back a little bit to try to lighten your load a little bit in that regard. Okay. Also, we're going to have a set of very small meetings or breakout sessions at other ones we do with some thoughts about managing stress. And these will be primarily student-to-student exchanges that you can take part of. In other words, we want to be a resource for you rather than just asking you, putting more work in front of you. Also, I want to stress something about the huddles. The huddles are a fantastic and rich resource. But having said that, I want you to be able to feel that they're a manageable addition to the opportunities that you have. So here's what I would recommend for you. Pick a few and go do those. Don't feel like you have to go every week to huddles, but pick some that are going to matter for you in line with your goals and your aspirations, and then attend those and get the most that you can out of it. It would be better for you to go to fewer of them and get more out of it than attempt to do more and find yourself exhausted and worn down with the totality of your experiences in November. Remember, the semester is a marathon. It is not a sprint, and you must pace yourself here. Okay. The last thing that we're going to do is make a special effort to reach out to our juniors and seniors. And exactly how we're going to do that, I'm not exactly sure. But Ms. Rainier and I were talking about this after getting some feedback from the senior interns today, and that will be something that we're doing. So we're kind of rolling back here a little bit to adjust our expectations in light of the challenges that we're facing. We're going to offer some talks to you, some resources. They might be short video clips. They might be opportunity to talk with other students about how to manage the stress so that you can do better and be the best that you can be. And then we'll also get connected with our juniors and seniors here. Any thoughts or questions about that? All right, we're student-led. This is really your program. And so I want to hear any thoughts or comments that you have about that. Does that strike any of you as a relief, some of the things I've just said to you? I'm seeing a few nods here. Yes, good. Because let me tell you something, if you're feeling stressed out now, right, and we're not even a full month into the semester, it only gets worse in terms of that stress. So you've got to be able to pace yourself. You've got to be able to weave in some fun into your calendar, right? Nights off, weekends off, fun with your friends, right? It cannot just be all work. It can't be that. I want you to be able to, this should be tough stuff. There should be some work here, but, we ought to be able to remain optimistic, in good spirits, and carry on and appreciate some fun that we're having in the course of this. Any thoughts? Okay. Ms. Rainier, any thoughts?
No, I mean, this is this is something that we discussed earlier and wanted to share with you all and think is necessary just in light of what we're hearing and from our one-on-ones or feedback from some of the other students. So we just want to emphasize that we care about you guys more than anything. And so this is part of that consideration, is how can we support you guys best to do what you need to do. This is just a really tough moment, and I can tell you that I am experiencing, Dr. Irving is experiencing, Dr. Rader is experiencing the same kind of stress and overload. And so I want to just add to what Dr. Irving has said to say that if you are struggling, or maybe you're not, but you just want someone to talk to, or you need advice about something in particular, you know, I talked to Maham for an hour today about something, please reach out. That's what we're here for. We've gone through it. We know lots of students who have gone through it. We've worked with students who've gone through it. Reach out to your upperclassmen, but certainly reach out to us. I'm always happy to meet. You know, I reach out and try to schedule one-on-ones, but I'm always open to you, even if we don't have something on the schedule, for you to try to reach out and do something like that. So don't feel like you don't have anyone to turn to. I hope that you know you can reach out to us.
I draw a lot of energy from y'all, and I've enjoyed some lunches that I've had with some of y'all already this semester, and a few coffees and a few phone calls. So I would really enjoy it too. If any of you want to call and just shoot the bull and talk about pups or the weather, or you know, the latest movie, or what you're binge watching on Netflix, or how pissed off you are about something about a faculty member you can't get a hold of, or I don't know, whatever. Just call or let me know, and I'd love to meet you for a coffee at Cougar Grounds. So honor, love you guys. We really care about you. Y'all have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to you soon.